Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, Colonel Cohn, fellow veterans, and especially veterans of the war in Vietnam. It is a tremendous honor for me to stand before you today as we come together to remember fallen comrades and that important time. The arrival of the Vietnam Memorial Wall in Prescott provides an opportunity for us to reflect on the important period in our individual lives and in our nation's history, especially now when we as a country are in our own time of war, a time where forces of tyranny and oppression are actively attempting to defeat our way of life, to defeat our ideals of democracy, liberty, and freedom. To the Vietnam veterans here today, who were never welcomed home with speeches and bans, and to all those whose names appear on the wall, you are all truly heroes. Heroes who face the issues of this war, including your own possible death, and after weighing those concerns against your obligation to your country, you decided to serve and serve with honor. You didn't do it for fame or reward. You didn't do it for place or rank. You did it in simple obedience to duty. Robert Frost once wrote, "Before I built the wall, I'd ask to know what was I walling in or walling out." But this wall doesn't wall in or wall out. No, it brings us all together. What makes this wall magnificent is its simplicity. Its panels of black stone hold not only the names of those killed, but also reflects the faces of each and every one of us who stand before it. In that reflection, we should all reflect on some truths about you, the Vietnam veteran. You were not much different than your fathers who served in World War II. Your average age was just under 23 compared to around 25 in World War II. You certainly didn't represent the popular image of those who fought in Vietnam, that you were poorly educated, reluctant draftees, predominantly poor whites and minorities. In reality, only 1/3 of you entered the military through the draft, far lower than the 66% drafted in World War II. And volunteers accounted for over 70% of combat deaths in Vietnam. You were the best educated, most egalitarian military force in America's history. In World War II, only 45% of the troops had a high school diploma. During Vietnam, almost 80% of you who enlisted had high school diplomas, and the percentage was higher for draftees, even though at the time, only 65% of military-age males had a high school diploma. Throughout the Vietnam era, the average education level of the enlisted man was 13 years. 3 times as many college graduates served in Vietnam than in World War II. 97% of Vietnam-era veterans were honorably discharged, the same rate for the military in the 10 years prior to the war. We salute you for your honorable service. If you were an officer, casualty rates were similar to that of the enlisted man. Proportionately, more officers were killed in World War II, or were killed in Vietnam than in World War II. In Vietnam, we lost as many company commanders as we did platoon leaders, confirming that if you were an officer in the Vietnam War, you led from the front. There's a common belief that the fighting in Vietnam wasn't as intense as in World War II. But in fact, the average infantryman in the South Pacific during World War II saw about 40 days of combat in any given year. The average infantryman in Vietnam saw about 240 days of combat in any given year. Most importantly, you were never defeated in combat. You were defeated on the political battlefield. Where you found the enemy, you defeated him. After the Tet Offensive in 1968, the Viet Cong and North Vietnamese operating in the South were so soundly defeated that they couldn't launch another major offensive until 1972. 9 million men and women served in the military during the 13 years of that war, and 3 million served in the Vietnam theater. You performed with a tenacity and quality that may never be fully appreciated or truly understood. And should anyone think that the war was conducted in an incompetent manner, they should look at the numbers. Hanoi admits the 1.4 million of its soldiers killed on the battlefield compared to our 58,000 and about 250,000 South Vietnamese. And if anyone tries to convince you that Vietnam was a dirty little war where Air Force and Navy bombs did all the work, you might remind them this was the most costly war the grunts of the United States Marine Corps ever fought. 5 times as many dead as in World War I, 3 times as many as in Korea, and more total killed and wounded than in World War II. So I humbly say to you, Marines, Semper Fi. Vietnam veterans, represented on this wall, and those here today, chose to serve and answer the call of duty, honor, and country. Those were hard choices and hard decisions during the 60s and 70s. You chose to serve your country when called, rather than the many alternatives that were available. You asked for nothing in return except for the respect of your countrymen. You not only talk the talk, you walk the walk. And without doubt, you exemplify President Kennedy when he said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." At Gettysburg in 1863, President Lincoln reminded us that through their deeds, the dead had spoken more eloquently for themselves than any of the living ever could, and that we living could only honor them by rededicating ourselves to the cause for which they so willingly gave the last full measure of devotion. This is especially true today, because in our minds and hearts is the memory of Vietnam and all that the conflict meant for those who sacrificed on the field of battle and for their loved ones who suffered at home. This wall is dedicated to those who gave their last full measure of devotion. It's also dedicated to each and every one of you, Vietnam veteran here today. This is a place where we can and must heal the wounds and heartache by what many call an unpopular Vietnam War. It's a place where we come to remember and honor the ultimate sacrifices of America's best, who are represented here on the Vietnam Wall. This is a time and place to remember our families and our own sacrifices and commitments. And we often ask ourselves why all these men and women gave their lives for the United States of America, especially when it became apparent the military would not be allowed to win the war. It's because the warrior, the citizen soldier, doesn't choose to go to war. He hates war. He doesn't choose where he fights, where he does his duty. My father and his generation did not choose war. They didn't choose to go to North Africa or Italy, the beaches of Normandy, or the Pacific. They were told to go, and they went. They did their duty, and they served honorably. When they came back, they were told, "Welcome home, job well done. Thank you for your service." My generation did not choose war. We didn't choose to go to Desert Storm, Iraq, or Afghanistan. We were told to go, and we did. We did our duty, and we served honorably. And when we came back, we were told, "Welcome home, job well done. Thank you for your service." You, the Vietnam veteran, you didn't choose war. You didn't choose to go to Vietnam or Southeast Asia. You were told to go, and you did. You did your duty, and you served honorably. Now all of us, the city of Prescott, and Yavapai County, the state of Arizona, and all Americans say to you, "Welcome home, job well done. Thank you for your service." May God bless you, protect our servicemen and women and their families, and may God continue to bless the America we love and serve. Thank you.
Amen.